I will just very briefly go over and touch on what we've talked about throughout the first 4 lives of this course. So first, we started off with talking about the fact that in Korean, yes, there are colors that can be nouns, that can only be nouns, and there are also colors that can be nouns and also adjectives. So, and then we talked about, well, if you do have a color that can only be a noun, then does it mean that I cannot use it in situations in which I would have used those colors as adjectives in English? Of course not. We figured out technical ways, technical alternatives that will allow you to use colors that can only be nouns in all sorts of situations, right? So you have to be aware of the technical skills that will enable you to do that. And then what did we do? We focused on colors that can be adjectives because they tend to have a lot of variations. Variations that are built that exist only to simply change the nuance of the color a little bit. So in real life conversations, nuance is everything. So it means that you have to be able to take a color and change the version of it if you want to change the nuance a little bit according to the situation that you are in. Okay, and then now we're going to start talking about what I call indications. Okay, and also a couple of variables. Okay, so that's what we will talk about today. And then starting tomorrow, if you have the PDF file, if you look at page number 11, you would notice that, yes, there are a lot of questions that are asked so that you can really practice everything that we've learned throughout the course. So we will go through the practicing section together starting tomorrow. 내일, that is. Okay, so now let's start talking about, well, today, indications. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is, yes, indications, not an independent word. It's just a syllable. And they cannot be independent. They cannot stand alone. They have to be attached and become a part of a word, of some kind of a noun, to indicate that noun's color. So once again, it is not an independent word. Okay, so that's what I mean by can only become a part of a noun to indicate the color of that noun. However, you cannot do it with all nouns. There are some nouns that use these indications, and there are a lot of nouns that don't. Okay, I will elaborate on this part. Well, on this part a little bit more. So what do I mean by you cannot do it with all nouns? You can't just do it just to give a noun a color. So I will elaborate. It means that these indications are used, for example, 홍조, 청바지, 황사 yellow dust, 흑해 black sea, 백발 white hair. Okay, so these indications can't just be used for anything. These indications are used when something, a thing, or a concept was named using these indications to begin with in the first place. So it means that, yes, these words that include these indications are meant for one specific particular thing. So, for example, 청바지, they mean jeans. So as a way of saying jeans, actually you're saying blue pants. Okay, because of course nowadays jeans, yeah, people wear it for fashion, right? Also for fashion, so there are all sorts of jeans, but when Koreans first started to see jeans, they were usually blue. So that's why it's called 청바지. Blue, 청, and 바지, pants. Now, then does it mean that, let's say I'm looking at pants and they aren't jeans. The fabric is completely different. It's just blue. So, let's say they're like pajama pants, for example. They're not jeans. So pajama pants, what are some cute patterns? Let's say flowers, whatever. So once again, they are not jeans, but they are blue. Does it mean that I can call them 청바지? using 청, the indication of blue, and attaching it to the noun pants. Can I call these 청바지? Once again, no, you cannot. Just because it technically means blue pants, you can't use it for pants that are blue. These words that include these indications were made in the first place for one specific particular thing or concept, jeans. So, literally, really, a conversation like this can take place. Let's say there's a dress code. We're invited to a party and there's a dress code. So, now, someone didn't really let's say, explain to me in detail. So I'm kind of confused here. So everyone seems to be a lot of people seem to be wearing jeans. So I'm gonna ask my friend, do we have to wear jeans or blue pants? So is it okay as long as it's blue, or does it have to be jeans? It's just that usually people wear jeans because they have blue pants. All the blue pants that they have are usually jeans. So which one is it? Is it really specifically jeans, or can it be just blue pants? Now, if I'm just going to say blue pants, then I'm just going to take the noun 바지, and we know how to use blue, right? Blue is a color that can be an adjective. So I'm just going to take, for example, the basic form of blue, 파랗다, and I'm going to inflect it into an attributive adjective, right? So how do I inflect 파랗다 into an attributive adjective? I need the N ending. And the N ending belongs to inflection route number 2. So what are the rules of inflection route number 2? The rules are, if you have an adjective, let's go to inflection route number 2. Now the H situation. Now, when you have the H situation, you once again have to divide the situation into 2, right? Into when you have verbs and when you have adjectives. Okay, so when you have an adjective, outside of exceptions, there is a very specific list of exceptions, right? If I had one of those exceptions, I would have applied a different formula, but right now, 파랗다 is not one of the exceptions. So, if I have an adjective, a display form of an adjective that ends with H, once ta is removed, then we will apply a 3-step formula, right? Remove ta, remove the H, and then attach the ending. So those are the rules of inflection route number 2. Why are we in inflection route number 2? Because the ending, the attributive adjective ending belongs to inflection route number 2. So that's what I'm going to do. Remove ta, remove the H, and then place the ending, 파란. So now I have blue, the basic form of blue. I am not using any kind of a nuanced variation right now, right? I'm not necessarily trying to give off a specific nuance, I'm just saying blue. So that's why I'm going to use the basic form. Exactly, 파랗다. So now I have 파란, the basic form of blue in its attributive adjective form. So because it's an attributive adjective, I can place it in front of some kind of a noun. So 파란 바지. Okay, so that's why I'm saying 청바지 and 파란 바지 are not the same. So just because 청 indicates blue and it was attached to blue pants, you can't just say, well, these pants are blue. Can I call them 청바지? No, once again, words that include these indications were made for one particular thing or concept to begin with. Jeans. That's it. So literally, someone can say, do I have to wear 청바지 or do I have to wear, is it okay if it's just a 파란 바지? Okay, so I'm asking, does it have to be jeans? Or is it okay as long as the pants I'm wearing are blue? Okay, so they are 2 different things. That's why I'm emphasizing, don't think of these indications as independent words. That's what I mean by they are not independent words, and that's what I mean by you can't do it for all nouns. You can't just say, oh, pants, I'll just attach 청 and just indicate that they are blue. You cannot do that. If you want to do that, if you're just talking about any kind of pants and you're just indicating that they are blue, well then use the color blue then, instead of an indication. Does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Okay. So, in the same vein, for example, let's take a look at another example. Yes, so that's what 청바지 is. And let's say, well, 흑해, black sea. Okay, so can I just take the word sea? Let's say 해. It's another way of saying sea. Of course, there's 바다 as well. Anyway, so like the Sea of Japan. Now, the Black Sea. There are a lot of seas out there, right? So now, can I just, let's say, 흑해, the marginal sea between Europe and Asia. Once again, it's a word that includes this indication. It means that it doesn't just mean Black Sea. It means it's a word that was made to begin with in the first place for that particular sea, the marginal sea between Europe and Asia, that sea. So, for example, let's say for whatever reason, there's another sea. So, and for whatever reason, the color of it turned a little bit dark. It turned black. Can I call it 흑해 then? Because I'm just saying Black Sea? No, once again, no. That's why I'm saying these indications cannot just be used for any kind of a noun just to indicate color. So, yes, 흑해, just like 청바지, is a name that was made for one particular thing or a concept. That sea, that marginal sea between Europe and Asia. Just because another sea turns black or dark, I cannot call it 흑해. If I want to, once again, yeah, just use the color black as an adjective or a noun, however you want to do it. And they say Black Sea. So I'm not talking about that sea, the 흑해. Let's say another sea just turned black for whatever reason. Let's say the East Sea of Korea, let's say it turned black. I cannot call it 흑해. I'm just going to, for example, take, let's say once again, I am not going to give off any kind of a specific nuance. Let's say I'm just going to use the basic form, 까맣다. Once again, I'm going to inflect it into its attributive adjective form and say 까만 바다. So let's say someone says, hey, I heard that. So which sea are you talking about? And if I'm going to say, oh, I'm talking about the East Sea of Korea. It's the black one. It turned black for whatever reason. So I'm going to say it's the Black Sea. 까만 바다. Okay, I cannot use 흑해 just because it technically means Black Sea. No, this was made for that particular sea, the marginal sea between Europe and Asia. Okay, so do not use these indications just to indicate color. If you want to do that, you know what to do. Take an adjective, take the color and use it as an adjective or noun. Okay, so, and of course, these are not all the indications, just typical examples and also typical examples. So another example that some of you might be familiar with is, well, yeah, there's an indication for green as well, which is 녹. Okay, so yes, there is actually a noun that says the color green, right? 녹색, but what did I say? It's the poetic trap. So you don't use it as a noun, the color green. Instead, what do you use? You use 초록색, right? Okay, but sometimes you might see 녹 as an indication. Okay, so what is a very typical example? Exactly, green tea, 녹차. Exactly. Sorry about that. I'll be right back. Who took page number 2? Okay. Anyway, yes. Yeah. I don't know where it is, but I'm going to blame someone else. Someone took page number 2. But anyway, okay, so page number 2. Yes, I showed you 2 versions of green, 녹색, 초록색. Yeah, the point is, don't use 녹색, it's the poetic trap. Okay, so once again, yes, if you ever see a word that includes one of these indications, once again, they're not literally just saying tea that is green. You can't do it for any kind of tea that is green. No, these words that that include indications were made specifically for a particular concept or thing. So the green tea that we know, that is made out of Camellia sinensis. So only that tea. So for example, if I take some kind of another tea, some other type of tea, and let's say I put something that makes it green. Let's say this is not the green tea that we typically know. It's something else. But I put something in that makes it green. Then can I call it 녹차 just because 녹 means green and 차 means tea? No. 녹차 is made for the green tea that we know. Only for that. So just because some kind of another tea has the color green, you cannot call it 녹차. If you want to describe this tea then, the new type of tea that you made, then just call it tea of the color green, because green is a color that can only be a noun, right? So you can't say, yes, green tea. You have to say tea of the color green. Okay, so I'm not an expert on tea, but they do say green tea and matcha are different in the way they are made. But anyway, okay, so 녹차. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Okay. So when it comes to these indications, expanding vocabulary would be very, very important. But, yes, let's say you're looking at a word that you have never seen before, but you see one of these indications. Well, at least it gives you a little bit of a clue, right? Okay, so it would come in handy if you are aware of this concept. But once again, don't just attach it to any kind of a noun to indicate color. If you want to do that, actually use the color word. Okay, so that's why here, if you see an example, I'm saying 파란색 좋아해서 청바지만 입어요. So I'm saying I wear only jeans because like the color blue, right? Once again, I said these indications cannot be an independent word. So I cannot say 청 좋아해서 청바지만 입어요. That's not even a structure of a sentence that exists. That makes no sense whatsoever because these indications cannot be used as an independent word. So I have to use the noun, the color blue. 파란색 좋아해서 청바지만 입어요. I wear only jeans because I like blue. I like the color blue. I'm sorry. Okay. Now next, let's take a look into a couple of variables that I would like to touch on before we move on to practicing everything. Okay, wait. Okay, yes. I knew that it wasn't someone else. I just wanted to blame someone else. Here it is. No one stole it. Okay, but anyway, page number 2. I found it. Now, page number 10, variables. So, we did talk about the fact that, yes, deep down I knew that it was my fault. It's usually my fault. So, now, we did talk about the fact that in Korean, there are colors that can be nouns, right? That can only be nouns. Okay, and there are colors that can be nouns and also adjectives, right? So, noun and adjectives. Now, what does this mean? If I have a color that can be a noun and an adjective, well, technically, it means that I can use it in 3 ways, right? If I have a color that can only be a noun, it means literally, yeah, I can only use it as a noun. But if I have a color that can be a noun and an adjective, it means that I can use it as a noun, of course, and I can use it as a predicative adjective. Let's say, I'm sorry, attributive adjective, and I can use it as a predicative adjective, right? Because all adjectives, usually adjectives, can be, yes, used in both ways. For example, yes, let's say I'm going to say, I am a fast swimmer. That fast as an adjective is being used as an attributive adjective because I'm placing it in front of what I'm talking about, swimmer. I am a fast swimmer. Attributive adjective. I can use the same adjective as a predicative adjective, right? I can say that swimmer is fast. Now, I'm not placing fast in front of a noun that I'm talking about. Yes, I'm just saying the swimmer is fast. That's a predicative adjective. Okay, so yes, it usually means that if you have a color that can be a noun and an adjective, of course I'm talking about both ways. You can use it as an attributive adjective and a predicative adjective. However, there are variables, there are very unique cases. This version of white and this version of black. 희다 and 검다 are technically very unique in the sense that yes, they can be a noun, sorry, and an adjective, but it stops here. You can use it as a noun and you can use it as an attributive adjective. So these two cases are very, very unique in the sense that they can be an adjective, but they are only used as attributive adjectives. So if you want to say white or black as a predicative adjective, we'll use a different version of it. There's no shortage of versions of white or black, right? Use one of these then. Black or white. Okay, so these two cases are very unique. Okay, so however, 희다 and 검다 are unique cases in that they can be an adjective but are only used as an attributive adjective. Okay, so I'm saying, for example, 진흙 많으니까 흰 신발 신지 마요. Okay, so I'm using it as an attributive adjective, right? 흰. Not sure if this makes it any clear. Yeah, because I'm placing it in front of a noun that it modifies. So white shoes. Don't wear white shoes. Yes, I'm saying there's a lot of mud, so don't wear white shoes. 진흙 많으니까 흰 신발 신지 마요. So I'm using it as an attributive adjective. Now, another example. 혹시 검은 모자 봤어요? Did you see a black hat by any chance? 혹시 검은 모자 봤어요? So once again, you can see that I'm using 검다, a version of black, but I'm only using it as an attributive adjective. Okay, so always keep in mind that these two versions, 희다 and 검다, this version of white and this version of black, is in that sense technically very unique. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? So 희다 and 검다. Okay. And this is a little bit off topic, but now we did talk about this a couple of times, something regarding 발음, pronunciation. Yes, there is a PDF file that is 162 pages, right? Something on pronunciation advanced. And you'll see everything that I'm explaining in detail in that PDF file. But anyway, yes, this 의 double vowel right here, 희다, sometimes it does actually sound like it should, 의, but a lot of times it just sounds like 이, right? There are a lot of cases in which 의 does not sound like 의, it actually sounds like 이. Okay, and one of them is when the consonant is H. Okay, so it's not 휘, it's just going to sound like 히, as if it is written like this. Of course, I'm always going to write it, spell it like this, but when I'm pronouncing it, then it's going to be 히. For example, good news in Korean. 희소식. I'm not gonna say 희소식. I'm just gonna say 희소식. Okay, so that's why when I'm saying 희다, I'm not saying 희다. I'm saying 희다. Dita, thank you for the donut. donut 감사합니다. Okay, so, and I already briefly touched on this, I think yesterday, 어제, but I'll do it just one more time. So the first variable that I wanted to touch on was 희다, this version of white, and this version of black, 검다. Now the next one is, yes, we did briefly talk about it 어제, yesterday. How do you say the word color to begin with? We're talking about colors, but how do I say color? Okay, well, yes, these are 6 versions that, yeah, you at least have to know. There are more versions, but these 6, yes, you might run into them. You will run into them at some point, so you have to be aware how they are different. So 색 and 색깔, I'm not going to say there's a very significant difference between the two in nuance. If I were to split hairs, maybe I could put my finger on how they are different, but right now I'm gonna say there is no significant difference. It usually comes down to habit. 색 and 색깔. However, 색상, starting here, now you have a very specific type of color. So 색상 usually is used in a professional setting. 색채 and 색조 are usually used when you are being professional but are also artistic, and 색조 even sensitive. So, and 빛깔 is a little bit outdated. I would say up until my grandparents' generation, they used it a lot, not so much anymore these days. Okay, but you might sometimes see people who still use it, 빛깔. Okay, so for example, let's say let's say I'm a customer, I'm a paying customer, I'm shopping, and I'm talking to a person, or let's say I'm looking at shoes. And let's say the person who is working there can obviously tell that I'm interested. Oh, I like these shoes. So this person is going to come up to me and say, oh, well, by any chance, if you're interested, there are. So once again, in Korean, you don't say other or another, right? You say different. As a way of saying, there are other colors too. We're going to say there are different colors too. Sorry. Okay, so I'm looking at shoes. They are, let's say, red. And this person is letting me know, well, yeah, if you like the design, but if you want it in a different color, well, we have those. Don't worry. Okay, so I'm going to use the predicative adjective there is, and let's say the plural is not too important. So different color. Once again, I'm using the adjective different as an attributive adjective, an adjective that is placed in front of the word that it modifies. And once again, when you are placing an attributive adjective in front of a noun, do not try to separate them when it comes to part of speech. If the noun is the subject, then the adjective is together the subject. And whenever you're saying there is this, there is that, whatever that is the subject. And also, unlike in English, to, in other words as well, in other words also, is not an independent standalone, right? It's a particle in the sense that it is attached, housed by the word that it modifies. So I'm saying, oh, yeah, we don't only have red, there are different colors too, not just red, different colors too. So to as a particle will go to different color. Okay, so I'll make it quick. So first I'm going to place the display form of different, right? 다르다. And I want to give it the attributive adjective ending, which is the N ending, right? And the rules of inflection route number 2 are, yes, if a display form ends with a vowel, any kind of a vowel, once that is removed, you immediately attach it, right? 다른. So I have different as an attributive adjective. 다른. And then color. Now, which one should I use? I mean, of course I can use, I'm not saying only one can be the answer, but this person is a person who is working here at the shoe store, and this person is talking to a paying customer. So which version should they use? Will they use? Or can they use, I should say. Exactly. 색상 would be a very, very good choice. 색상. Exactly. 색상. So a lot of times when you are shopping even online in Korea, yeah, on your phone, you will see this word a lot. 색상. Okay. Because it's professional. Someone is selling something at a store. They are communicating with their customers. There's nothing more professional than that. So 다른 색상. And then once again, to, in other words, as well, in other words, also, will be attached to the word that it modifies. So also different color. 다른 색상도. And then there is 있다. Okay. We're not going to indicate plural because it's not important. Okay, so, or when you feel like it's too obvious according to the context, because, yes, in about 2 seconds, I'm about to tell you that we have green, purple, black, and white. Okay, so right now, it's just going to take me 2 seconds. In 2 seconds, I'm going to explain to you that we have a whole bunch of colors. So, yes, I'm not going to necessarily indicate plural right now. So no plural, no S, and we're just going to use 있다, there is. But I don't want its display form. I'm going to give it the 요 ending. If I want to, I need to place all, right? And then 요. So this person who is working here, if they are looking at me as a paying customer, they will carry a very professional tone and they will say, 다른 색상도 있어요. So, yes, please let me know. Yes, you are looking at the red model, but if you want to see how it looks like in green, purple, let me know. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? 다른 색상도 있어요. Okay. If you really want to include the plural to make it very clear that I'm not saying we have red and green, we have a lot of colors, yeah, you can keep the plural. I'm not saying that you shouldn't keep the plural. In this case, the reason why I took out the plural is because in 2 seconds, I'm literally going to tell you all the colors that we have. So that's why I'm saying it's going to be obvious. So just give me 2 seconds. That's why I omitted the plural for now. But if you want to be very clear from the get-go, yeah, you can keep it. Okay, so now let's slightly change the situation. Now let's say we're talking about an artist. We're at a museum and we're talking about an artist. And my 친구, my friend, notices that I am a huge fan of a specific artist, a particular artist. So he says, what do you like so much about this artist specifically? And I'm going to say, well, I like her because of the unique colors. Of course, the colors that she uses, the way she uses colors in her, yes, pieces of art. Okay, so of course you're asking me, of course I'm talking about I, of course I'm talking about her, we're looking at it. Okay, so I'll give you an image. So I'm pointing at, hey, yeah, look at how she uses colors. So this is my friend asking me the question, and we are at a museum. Yeah, so let's say I think she uses colors in a very, very unique way. And that's why I like her. Let's say there's colors here, there's colors there, whatever. Okay, so if I'm gonna say I like her because of the unique colors. Right now, in this case then, which version would you use? Of course, I'm not saying you have to use one version and only that version, but yes, if you were to play around with words, which versions would you try out then? In this case, when you say because of color, 색조, you want to be professional, artistic, and sensitive? Yes, okay, so let's say, well, let's say I'm a person, yeah, exactly. We don't have to be friends. Let's say we're not necessarily friends. I'm a person who works at this museum and I'm explaining it to this person. Exactly. So I can be professional, I can be artistic, and I can be sensitive as well. So I can use 색채 and I can use 색조. Okay, exactly. So, exactly. I'm not saying that you have to use 색조 or 색채. No, they both work, right? And I'm not saying the basic forms don't work. They do. Yes, and also if I'm working here at this museum or I feel like I'm the one who has to, yes, like professionally explain technically how this works, like how her art is special, then yes, I can say 색깔, 색상, 색채, 색조. They all work depending on what kind of a nuance you want to emphasize more. Yes, I would have also said 색채 or 색조. Okay, or if I just want to use the basic form, I can. Basic forms, I can. Let's say in this case, let's just use 색채. But once again, you can use 색조. Okay, so I'm going to say, yes, because of the unique colors. Of course, no the. And let's say we're looking at a couple of colors. So of course the plural is too obvious now. And we have the verb like. We have supplementary information, right? So supplementary information, yes, because of unique color. Okay, so of course, yes, when it comes to using unique, now you want to be very specific once again. Am I going to use a positive version of unique, 독특하다, or just a basic form of unique? I mean, of course, you can use 특이하다 in all cases because 특이하다 okay, is a comprehensive version that, in the sense that you can use it in all cases. 독특하다 is a little bit of a more specific version of unique that usually is used in a positive sense. So it automatically gives off a very positive sense, a positive nuance. So in this case, I can use 특이하다, but I can use 독특하다 as well because I'm saying I like her, how she, yes, performs art because of how she uses colors. It's very unique. So I'm going to take 독특하다, but I want to use it as an attributive adjective. I don't want its predicative adjective form because I'm going to place it in front of a noun, right? 독특한, and then color. Once again, yeah, you can say 색조, but just for practice, let's use 색채. 독특한 색채. I'm sorry about that. What's happening here? And then because of, unlike in English, it goes behind the word that it modifies, right? 독특한 색채 때문에, and then 좋아하다, I like. But of course, I don't want its display form. We have to give it the yo ending, right? So in order to do so, yes, inflection route number 1, you have to first change ha into he and then attach yo, right? Okay, and of course, I'm not going to give these H sounds an H sound. They are somewhere in the middle of a word, so they will be practically silent. So I'm not going to say 좋아해요. Okay, so altogether we have the whole 문장. 천천히 읽을게요. 독특한 색채 때문에 좋아해요. 독특한 색채 때문에 좋아해요. 독특한 색채 때문에 좋아해요. I like her because of the unique colors. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, and by sensitive, I mean when you're being very, very delicate to pick up and appreciate all the small aspects of colors. So yes. Like for example, when you're saying, hey, look carefully, look at that corner. That's like a very specific type of green, right? It's a little bit darker, but in a very aesthetic way. So when you're being very delicate, picking up all the details. Okay, so 독특한 색채 때문에 좋아요. So I used the positive version of unique, and I used, yes, the artistic and a little bit professional version of color. 독특한 색채 때문에 좋아요. Okay, so that's how you say the word color. Because of course, if you want to talk about colors, red, blue, green, orange, yellow, you want to know how to say color, of course. Okay, so some of you might remember that when we were going through the number course, yeah, before we talked about 32, 79, we first started with how to say the word number. And I showed you 3 versions, right? The big 3. You have to know when to use which. Okay, so the same with color. Okay, so now that was it for 오늘. Yeah, starting tomorrow, once again, we will take everything that we've learned throughout this course and look into a whole bunch of examples to practice. Okay, so we will be talking about how to use colors as nouns, adjectives, how to use variations, and how to take into consideration all the